Oh, good morning, everyone. On this Monday, we are tracking thunderstorms that are blasting through the Midwest here, bringing with them the threat for all hazards, including damaging wind and hail.
From St. Louis to Chicago, it is going to be a rough commute this morning. Anything that you're trying to get in next couple of hours, it's going to feature rain.
These are not your typical morning thunderstorms.
No, they're pretty powerful.
Yeah, especially the ones around the St. Louis area and tracking down through that area. So we'll be tracking thunderstorms. This is not the only round that we will see today either.
No, that's the thing. Not only are we going to see multiple rounds, that really ramps up the flash flooding threat too, which so many of these areas, they're weary of the flash flooding. We're super saturated at this point.
It seems like every thunderstorm is a big downpour these days here. That was the case over the weekend. We're going to recap what has happened and also show you what this will do and then where the new thunderstorms will fire up today. We're also tracking the fire threat and the smoke from that threat that actually is so widespread. Of course, the fires in California and Washington and Oregon and into Canada, but there's no fire here in Jackson, Wyoming, but you can see a hazy look to the sky.
The sun coming up, and sometimes when you have the sun coming up and, you know, the beams going through some of this smoke, it can create these beautiful colors, but at the same time, it's very hazy. The air quality is awful, especially if you already have lung issues or heart issues. It just becomes all the more dangerous.
It's an issue here. Actually, it's an issue all the way through parts of the Midwest, like into Minnesota, and even in the Northeast, and even parts of the Southeast. Some of that smoke is kind of circling around and affecting your visibility.
And this is all stemming from multiple fires in the West. Of course, one of the biggest right now is in California, near Chico, California.
The Park Fire up over 350,000 acres here, not a high containment. We'll talk more about what's going on there with the weather today. We did finally get a bit of a break in the weather this weekend here, and we'll see if that's going to last.
Let's head to the tropics right now, because where we've got this pesky low pressure system. If this had more time over water, could we have been looking at something subtropical in nature? It's very possible, but we're looking at this slowly making its way onshore. It kind of spreads out, loses a lot of organization as we go throughout the day. And as that happens, we're going to be seeing rain anywhere from Philly all the way up into the state of Maine, though I think coastal Maine areas like, say, Acadia National Park, not likely to see as much rain as what we're going to see in a place like Boston, or we get over into Connecticut and Rhode Island, where we're already seeing rain this morning. Swirling around the center of the low. So Boston seeing less showers right now than an area like Connecticut and Rhode Island, and even Long Island, seeing some showers swirling on. But, you know, with this low pressure, you know, as we were forecasting this over the weekend, it looked like the pressure was going to drop a lot more than it actually did in reality. So the wind problems are not extending inland. Instead, the wind problems are right at the coastline, where we could see wind gusts maybe 30, 40 miles per hour. But once we get inland and, you know, you get some of the friction to slow the wind down, it's not going to be as much of an issue. So we're mainly looking at rain as we go throughout the day. Do we see some feistier thunderstorms in the afternoon with some of the instability building in? That's something that warrants watching. But also the wind, as mentioned, it's not going to be as much of an issue. If you're by the coast, that's where we've got all the special marine warnings that are out there. But as this starts to move inland and we see the organization fall apart of this low pressure system, the wind really becomes a non-issue. Boston, we have rain for the first part of the day. We've got rain as we head into the first part of the afternoon. In the evening, you may even see the sunset. It's a possibility in Boston, depending on how quickly this clears out. It just is all going to come down to the timing and how long the rain and even some potential storms stick around. But for today, Jen, the rain has brought some much cooler temperatures in a place like Boston.
Yes, kind of a crummy start.
Containment. That number has been going up, so at least that's some good news. But to put this into perspective, you know, you hear 360,000 acres, and you're like, okay, how can I picture that? That's bigger than the footprint of Los Angeles. It's bigger than the footprint of Phoenix. So we're dealing with a very large fire, and it's not just where it's burning, it's the smoke emission from this fire that's causing all sorts of problems, not just in the Pacific Northwest, but will eventually take all of this fire, and there are multiple fires going on, large fires in Oregon and parts of the Pacific Northwest, that will push air quality, poor air quality, over the northern tier, eventually into a place like the Twin Cities, as we watch some of the smoke and follow the jet stream to figure out where this smoke is going to end up. Of course, the worst air quality is really close to the fires, and that's where areas like Boise, we've had terrible air quality for the past couple of weeks, and there's not really any relief in sight. So as we watch the pattern that's going to take this smoke and it's going to travel all the way to areas like Omaha, to the Twin Cities, maybe even the Great Lakes, starting to see hazy skies in the morning or in the afternoon because of the fire and how quickly it's going to the smoke is going to spread across the northern half of the U.S. There's more fire danger today, red flag warnings, especially in Utah, areas like Wyoming, even up into Montana and parts of Idaho, where, Jen, you have to be so careful that no more fires start because they will spread quickly.
Oh, as we've seen. Now check out this time lapse.
Storms that quickly make you have to change your plans and readjust to something else.
It's summer is such a difficult time, though, because the chance of rain, that probability of precipitation is tough. 50%, 60%. You don't want to cancel plans.
Right. And, you know, you and I have the curse of being a meteorologist. So, you know, you're looking at 300 hours out, like more than 8 days, trying to figure out, OK, am I going to have to change my plans?
Exactly. Well, you can go to Threads, send us your comments, also share your pics and video with us using the hashtag YesTV.
Well, let's go live to Lauderdale. Let's take you to some of our beaches and show you our forecast, especially for rip currents, because, you know, we still have a lot of people visiting the beaches, trying to fit in those last couple summer trips before school starts. Right. And we do have a rip current danger, especially in the Northeast today.
You know, we've got this low pressure that's kind of spinning up here, making it not a great beach day. The rip currents are one risk. The other, of course, is the showers, maybe even some thunder and lightning like around Atlantic City. And so while overall water temperature is warm, I mean, this is a good time of year to go to the beach. Today might not be the best day.
No. And then we take you to Long Beach. Of course, that's what Jen was just talking about with that low pressure. It's going to be rain pretty much throughout the day. As soon as we got rid of some of the shower activity and some of the clouds in places like Texas, we are right back into the summertime heat. Not even a day to enjoy the drier temperatures or the drier weather before the temperatures start to soar. Excessive heat warnings, you see them in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas City. We also have a few around St. Louis, Jonesboro, and northern portions of Arkansas. Everywhere else, we've got a heat advisory. But that's enough, right? That's enough to make it very dangerous outside. Dallas, we're soaring to our feels like temperatures into the danger zone by this afternoon, all the way up to 105. And even by this afternoon, even by this evening, if you're thinking, OK, I'll wait till this evening to work out after we're going to get closer to sunset, it's still going to be hot outside. So here's a look at the heat index forecast climbing quickly into the afternoon. Tuesday, a lot of places are going to be even hotter than what we're going to see today, including 107 for you in Little Rock, even 106 in Jackson and New Orleans, where, you know, we never got rid of the humidity, but it at least took the edge off some of the heat. We are right back into that heat. Kansas City, the danger zone this afternoon. You're going to climb to there around 2 p.m. and that's where we're going to stay. This is what I was talking about. Even as we get into the evening time frame, it is still hot outside. So finding an opportunity to get outside, if you have a run plan, if you're just trying to go for a walk, it's going to be difficult in this next heat wave that's going to be building in, because it's not just today, it's also tomorrow, even into Wednesday, as the number of people that are going to see temperatures above 95 degrees continues to grow. And this combines with what Jen was talking about. So we've got this area where we've got these highs above 95 degrees. We've got this big ridge of high pressure that's building in, but up and over the ridge, that's where we're going to follow our storm track every single day. And Jen, this is a pattern that we've seen a lot so far this summer, where the heat is in the central and southern part of the U.S. and we've got the ridge riders across the northern tier.
And they could be some pretty feisty storms, those ridge riders, especially building on that heat.
These disturbances and this trough that's moving down eventually into the southeast could affect maybe our track of that tropical system. A lot to work with and a lot to keep an eye on. But I want to talk about what's going on today, and that's our storm track from areas anywhere in the northern tier all the way down through the Mid-South and the Ohio Valley, even stretching into portions of the Southeast. And you're thinking, OK, we've seen enough storms at this point. You're right. This has been a storm track that's been pretty consistent for a while now. And we've got some pretty feisty thunderstorms stretching from Chicago all the way down to St. Louis, taking over a lot of the central portion of Illinois. A lot of lightning in these storms. Thankfully, nothing is severe right now, but that doesn't mean that they won't cause issues. Gusty winds, lightning, blinding downpours, all moving in and moving past the St. Louis area. So if you're traveling on any of these interstates this morning, I-55, eventually we'll get this across I-65 and I-69 as this continues to move to the east. It's going to be a bit of a mess for travel. And then we'll take you down into parts of the south and the southeast, where we're expecting more thunderstorms today. Atlanta, by the way, broke a daily record yesterday with rainfall, almost 3.5 inches of rain. We see more coverage of thunderstorms into the afternoon, very typical summertime kind of pattern, where you see the activity pick up late afternoon, early part of the evening, continue until sunset. But here's the deal. It's going to continue past sunset this evening, especially in a place like Indianapolis down through Louisville, where we're going to see storms form. They're going to become rather strong. They're going to dive to the south. And when you see a feature like that, kind of more of a bowing shape, that screams straight line damaging wind as people are sleeping through the overnight hours, and some thunderstorms that will likely wake you up because they're going to be pretty powerful. Let's zoom into Atlanta for the rest of the day. You know, we're going to see those scattered showers, thunderstorms. It's just going to add to the rainfall totals that we already have in Atlanta. So watch out for any flash flooding, especially around the evening commute time. We'll be right back. Wildfire season, and we saw a slow start to wildfire season, but now it has picked up, and it has really picked up in pace and intensity, unfortunately. And a lot of resources in the West are being spread thin because we have so many fires that are erupting, and we have more fire danger on tap for today, especially in areas like California around Bakersfield. We get into Utah, portions of Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, all under a red flag warning for today. Meanwhile, where we have the fires already burning, air quality is just terrible. Air quality alerts for areas like Boise, Twin Falls. We get up to areas in Washington State over into Oregon, where we've got multiple fires burning as well. Dense smoke, where the Park fire is. That's now the largest fire in California right now. So it's been a mess as far as some of the wildfire danger. And there's no relief in sight. There's no big pattern change coming to the west that's going to provide us with relief from the heat or the drier air that's helping fuel some of these fires, and certainly no rain in the forecast. Meanwhile, the smoke emission from a lot of these fires is being spread not just across the Pacific Northwest, but it's going to have a pretty big footprint as it travels along the jet stream into areas like the northern tier, eventually into the upper Midwest, maybe even the Great Lakes and portions of the Northeast getting some of the wildfire smoke. If you're starting to see a little bit of a haze on the horizon, just know that it likely is from wildfire smoke. And this is what I was talking about. No big change in the pattern that's expected. Very likely to stay above average temperature wise as we start off the month of August. You see the big red area that's over the western third of the U.S., but really it's a lot of the lower 48 that looks like we're going to stay in that very hot pattern. Redding, California. Take a look at your average high is around 100 degrees. Today, we're below that, but then we're going to quickly climb well above that by the time we get to Friday. So, Jen, bottom line, no relief in sight, and hopefully they can get some containment with these fires and start getting, you know, at least a handle on it so they don't spread even more.
Right. I know it was nice to have a break in the weather this weekend here, but you see how
highway is difficult today from Chicago to St. Louis, especially if you're traveling by road, and we could see some impacts to our airports, not only in Chicago as the day goes on, but also as we get into the Northeast and this pesky low pressure system continues to swirl rain and wind on shore. So could we see some delays? Boston, JFK, even into the Southeast, where we're expecting more summertime thunderstorms this afternoon. Just depends on exactly where they form, right? If they're by the airport or if they're, you know, a couple of miles away and the flights are still able to get in and out without any problems. This is the thunderstorm cluster that I was talking about from Chicago all the way back to St. Louis. You can see a lot of the planes diverting around that because there are some taller thunderstorms that they can't fly through. So if you're a nervous flyer, you know, that should make you feel good. They don't fly through the strongest thunderstorms. It's just not safe. They always find a way around. No airport delays right now, either at O'Hare or at Midway, St. Louis. All the storms are kind of in between those areas right now, but that could change later today as we're watching more thunderstorms. This is mainly focused around the Kentucky area, down through areas, say Nashville and Knoxville. So traveling by road is going to be a bit of a mess as well on some of our major interstates. And of course, in the Southeast, down through Florida, where we've got pretty much a daily chance of thunderstorms. Now that's where we could have some issues. Atlanta, we're fine for now, but watch what happens as we get into the second half of the day. Pretty typical summertime pattern where we get those feistier thunderstorms that build up. They get very tall in the afternoon and they dump all of this rain. In fact, Atlanta broke a daily rainfall record yesterday with 3.5 inches of rain. But you go just 30 minutes to the northeast of the Atlanta airport and you find Peachtree DeKalb Airport, and that's where it was less than a half an inch of rain. So it really is a huge difference when you see these kind of patterns come in, especially in the summertime. It just all depends, Jen, on exactly where that rain falls. I barely saw any at my house.
I got an inch in 15 minutes. So there you go, right? Yeah. We'll stay on top of any forecast is important, right? Mm-hmm. So you can sort of disregard any risk, but you can kind of go on with your plans, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we want to know what you have to think. You can go to Threads to send us your comments. You can also share your pictures and video with us by using the hashtag SPV.
Help you plan for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast. I feel like, Jen, you had a hand in picking the music today. It's like all the country music about storms,
well,
it's on the playlist today.
Well, I didn't exactly pick it. Maybe I inspired it. But I tell you, the weather inspired it. I mean, we've had storm after storm after storm in some of the same spots, and we're on this storm train up here in the Midwest.
I will say, this line from Chicago all the way to St. Louis showing some signs that, there's pieces of the line that are trying to weaken, but still within that, you got some strong storms, a lot of lightning too.
Yeah, winds can be 30, 40 miles per hour. Thankfully, it's not severe, but it's been holding together. So top part of it's falling apart a little bit. We'll see if it makes it to Indianapolis and Louisville, and then we got to find out what comes next after all this.
Meanwhile, we've got smoke and wildfires in the West. Smoke and air quality, a huge issue. Even when we're not seeing fires, like here in Jackson, Wyoming, nice temperature, 42, but you can see the haze in the sky, and that's a big concern.
With a temperature like this, 42 degrees, you would think that we would have a nice clear blue, perfectly blue sky. It's not the case. There's that milkiness to the sky out there, and that's due to wildfire smoke.
And so we're not only watching the wildfires, we're watching the tropics, we're watching the storms. A lot to keep track of today. So today